As Bitcoin breaks above an important diagonal resistance level, market sentiment has flipped bullish, but the charts print bearish. What is it that everyone's missing? Find out in today's exciting episode of Breaking Bitcoin. Welcome back to Breaking Bitcoin. We are live every day at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is your daily source for everything cryptocurrency, markets, and personal finance. I'm your host, Justin Wise, lead analyst at crackingcryptocurrency.com. Hopefully you guys are all doing absolutely fantastic today, wherever you happen to be tuning in from across this wide world, and whether you're watching us on YouTube, Twitch, DLive, Facebook Live, or on Roku with the Investor News Channel app. Of course, if you're tired of watching price from the sidelines, trading with your gut, or being disappointed by the calls from crypto Twitter, there's never been a better time to join our community of traders and begin building your own objective data-driven strategy. Take advantage of our community and one-on-one mentoring sessions, our premium indicator suite to take the guesswork out of trading, and our verified trading signals and much more. You can find all the information at premium.crackingcryptocurrency.com or click the link in the description down below, premium.crackingcryptocurrency.com. There's so much to talk about. Hopefully you guys had an absolutely fantastic weekend. I had a good weekend. A lot of stuff. We've got an exciting day in the markets. We've got the SPY up and turning back down around. Oil futures are up almost 8%. Called oil for the group. We'll get into that here in a little bit. PDBC trade doing well. So traditional markets are doing pretty good, even though sentiment over there is getting odd with the US-China rising tensions. Overall, in the cryptocurrency markets, things are looking relatively bullish as we have broken above an important resistance level. However, there might be a little bit of flies in the ointment. We'll look at that here in a little bit and try to develop our best strategy moving forward and let you guys know what we are overall doing in the group. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the chat. The moderators will direct my attention to them as we move through the show. And if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. That's how you get notified when we go live. And don't forget to drop a like on today's video. We highly appreciate that. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter for content that you will not see anywhere else, not even here on the tube of you. Yes, that's right, the tube of you. All right, with that being said, let's get over to the charts. Let's get over to the live scene because there's a lot I want to talk about. All right, here we are in the live scene. A lot to talk about, a lot to go on. Let's pull up the daily chart of Bitcoin and just run through some stuff. All right. So obviously a choppy week. Last week was relatively choppy. As trend following traders, choppy market conditions are always going to annoy us. They're not conducive to the best possible trade setups. And again, that's why we approach the philosophy of position sizing and entering into positions with the philosophy of the poker table, right? You keep your chip loss small so that when the market is not in your favor, your losses are relatively small. And when the market again corrects and turns in your favor, it is easy to recoup small losses that you made during chop and to take that next leg up on your equity curve. I talked about this over the weekend in the members group. If you guys are new to strategy building, if you're running a relatively new system, or if you've been running a system that's been performing well for the last 3 or 6 months, and you're entering into a period of a losing streak. Keep in mind, losing streaks are always going to happen for any possible system. And generally, if you've done the proper work, if you have built your strategy the correct way, you know it back tests well, you know it forward tests well, you've tested it in different market conditions, the only thing that needs optimized is your patience. Now, Bitcoin obviously had a pretty volatile weekend. We saw a high of 99.74 through Saturday and Sunday, and we sold back down pretty wildly to a low of 9,400 this morning. We're currently right between that and pushing down on current price action. Current price action is pushing us down today below today's point of control, forming a daily doji, which is overall not a good sign. Doji candles represent that buyers and sellers are at equal strengths. These often occur at inflection points in the market, periods of resistance and periods of support. Obviously, the first determination that could be made is because we are relatively high. We are at a level of resistance, of course, and a doji candle forming is not a superb sign of strength for the bulls. However, it's not an absolute sign of bearishness. It just says that that the direction of the market is not fully revealed yet. Let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. I wanted to comment on Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance is interesting. Bitcoin dominance is interesting. We are down from our highs of around 69%. We're still holding relatively high at 67%. Now, what's interesting is if we look at the breaking Bitcoin initiator here, we are still posting white crosses, not red crosses. So we have not closed and cracked below that BB initiator. If we were to do that, I think that this would be relatively bullish for altcoins moving forward. However, it would also kind of signal weakness in the overall market. It all depends on USDT dominance and whether we see USDT dominance rise or stay stable or fall. If USDT dominance rises while Bitcoin dominance falls and breaks below support, then that is a sign of weakness in the overall cryptocurrency markets and that many individuals are moving into Tether and does signal a retracement. If, on the other hand, USDT dominance stays stable or falls and Bitcoin dominance is on the decline, this is relatively bullish for altcoins and might herald this much vaunted alt season that crypto Twitter will not shut up about. All right. So again, a breakdown here in Bitcoin dominance might lead to alts continuing to have a nice run. But again, USDT dominance is going to be the kind of determination of that. And if we go take a look at USDT dominance, we can see that USDT dominance has been on quite a rise lately. All right. Now, of course, new Tether was printed. You have to take this into account. However, not equivalent to the amount of individuals simply moving into Tether. So there's a lot of fear and anxiety in the markets right now. We are, of course, at resistance. A lot of individuals putting on shorts. A lot of shorts got liquidated on this last little run up to the upside. But again, not an insane amount, not an amount of liquidations that would make me think like, oh, of course, this is a local top. Liquidations are displaying this quite clearly. So overall, a lot of neutral and conflicting signals coming out of the market. And it's okay if you don't have a good handle on exactly what you want to do right now, right? We've all been, we all enjoyed the spot long run up, from relatively close down at the lows. I mean, we were in a little bit after 5. So things have been relatively good for us moving forward. So again, just being patient and waiting for the next movement from the markets. I would say overall, from what I'm seeing in the market, all eyes, at least my eyes, at least, are on Ethereum for Ethereum 2.0. That's the next huge fundamental that's coming. And I'd say that individuals are focused on Bitcoin's post-halving bull run. The idea that, of course, the supply shock, that the reduction in sell-side pressure would have on the markets is going to represent itself forward with Bitcoin having a bull run, of course, combined with the global economic situation of, the central banks just printing money like burr and everything that we're seeing going on. Obviously, the recession that we're moving into being a bullish fundamental for Bitcoin. Now, looking at the traditional analysis of Bitcoin, we are at a fairly interesting place. This is kind of my traditional TA, your kind of classic TA chart of Bitcoin. As you can see, we've got this, and I haven't seen too many people talk about this. What I've seen a lot of people talk about is this trend line descending to the downside, right? This is the weekly chart of Bitcoin. We're using the Bitstamp chart for this. We've got this descending trend line that starts off of the peak of the 2019 run-up, right? This is after we fell off in November of 2018 and consolidated down there at the lows around 3,500. And then we had that nice huge run up moving into Q1, Q2 of 2019. We topped in June of 2019 at a high of about 14,000. Consolidated, broke down, fell all the way down to about 6,500, ran back up to about 10.5. And then, of course, we had the March meltdown just recently here in 2020, where we melted down briefly to below 4K levels. This generally caused and exacerbated by the Bitmex liquidation engine failing. And when I say the Bitmex liquidation engine failing, what I really mean is Bitmex failing. And we can see, I've talked about this so much because the price on spot exchanges didn't fall that low and the price on the CMEs didn't fall that low. So, although, we can blame Bitmex for the market meltdown, but the signs were already bearish. We were seeing massive market sells. It's just the Bitmex liquidation engine severely exacerbated it. And Bitmex is paying the price. We're going to be covering this later. Bitmex embroiled in a lawsuit now in the Northern District of California as of, this is actually like a week old news, but just covering it now. And a new amendment has been filed this morning. And they've seen about 30% reduction in Bitcoin volume on their platform, and rightly so. Bitmex is not the place to be trading on. This is why we trade on ByBit. But anyway, so, a lot of commentators on the market talking about breaking this descending diagonal trend line. And although that, I don't want to say that's insignificant. This is weekly data. This is not a well-established trend line. It does go back a while. However, we have better trend lines if we're going to be looking at trend lines. We have important levels. So if you guys will recall, I don't exactly remember when this was. This was back in Sad to be back in 2018. Back in 2018, when we were trading this area right here, we had roughly the same kind of setup. We had a descending trend line. We had two descending trend lines forming this wedge formation, and we had talked about stacking shorts in that upper wedge formation. We had talked about that. We executed on that, and we did well. For anybody that was with us back in 2018, they may remember that trade setup. It occurred, again, over here in July and August of 2018. Again, we were live back then. Go back and check the live streams. But we kind of have that same scenario right now. Right now, I'm not a big fan of trend lines. You guys know this, but I will comment on this because I got a lot of requests to talk about this breaking diagonal. So I'm going to talk about it. Now, this current diagonal, again, extends down from the high of June 2019, the one that everybody's excited that we broke above. And we certainly did close the weekly above this descending diagonal. However, I would argue that the more important diagonal that people might want to be watching is the one that stretches from the high of 19,000, marks the high of the 2019 run, and is potentially looking to mark the high of the 2020 run so far. Now, I am very bullish on Bitcoin moving forward. I do expect us to break this over the next 18 months. But what we want to know is, are we likely or not to break that now? Are we more likely to reject from this descending diagonal? Or are we likely to power through? Typically, when you come up to a level of resistance, you're more than likely to reject, right? Particularly significant levels of resistance. Now, we have a few extenuating factors, and I'll tell you overall how I view this and what I would be watching for with this kind of data, with this kind of analysis. First off, and this is another thing too that I would just point out. Again, if we're going to go down the rabbit hole of trend lines, let's go down the rabbit hole, okay? All right, so one thing people are watching for is, of course, we can draw the same thing, descending trend line on the RSI. We can draw a descending trend line on the stochastics, and we could even draw a descending trend line on money flow, okay? And they're all going to tell roughly the same story with the exception of the RSI. If we ignore this descending diagonal and take into account the wider descending diagonal, then where we are right now is in a wedge of a good area to short the market from, right? We're in a wedge of a good area to short the market from for a long-term trade. Now, if we're looking at the weekly Bollinger Bands, which have been pretty predictive of when the market turns around, closing above and closing back within, if just a casual analysis of this type of trade will show you pretty profitable trades, catches highs, catches lows, catches highs, catches lows relatively well. There are issues with this method of trading. For example, if you take a close critical eye at following this method, automated, in the run-up during 2019, you would have gotten chopped up quite a bit because there are several situations where we are trading above the upper boundary of the Bollinger Band and then close back within, and then we just continue to pump. So twice, it would have scathed you pretty bad. And of course, because the 2019 run-up was one of the most profitable run-ups that we've seen in Bitcoin since 2017, I would have been pretty salty losing out on that run-up. However, since that, with the exception of that, it's done pretty darn well. So, things to consider when you are... things to consider when you are looking at building your strategy. Certainly something to look at, certainly something that can't be ignored. Now, we are nowhere near that upper boundary of the Bollinger Band, so the BBs are not necessarily calling for a reversal now. We would have to get all the way above 11,000 for that to happen, which conveniently is also right where the descending trend line is. Now, I would argue that if we approach this trend line over the next 2 weeks, then that level will actually be 10,500. We've talked about 10,500 before. It's an important level. Breaking 10,500 is when a lot of the market is going to get extremely bullish. I would argue that we do have this long-term horizontal going back to the decline. We have an order block going all the way back to January of 2018 that we have been unable to break above. We can see it establishes resistance here. This is where the market turns around at the high of June 2019, and that level is sitting at 11,989. But of course, you can give that a little wiggle room, and we just call it 11,900 to 12,000. I am very confident that breaking 12,000 is going to be the last sign that we need to see if we're going to be looking at a new all-time high. 10.5 is where I would start fundamentally stacking a breakout position to the upside, where if I was looking to trade this in this fashion. Of course, as an investor in Bitcoin, I stack my position all the time. Today's Money Monday. I did not buy Bitcoin today. I actually bought silver today. It's Money Monday. So if you guys aren't familiar with the Money Monday process, every Monday I pull out my mobile phone and I make some investments, right? Some on Mondays that might be Bitcoin, that might be Ethereum, that might be stocks, That might be gold. That might be silver. I generally use, in the past, I've generally used Robinhood for this. I am currently using Webull for this. You guys can sign up for Webull if you want to get some free stocks. There's the link down in the description, webull.krakencryptocurrency.com. But I encourage you to use your own broker or exchange or whatever you guys feel comfortable with investing in. But this is just my process to make sure that I am continually stacking sats and building away toward a long-term investment profile. The reason why is because most individuals get overly concerned with they confuse their trading account with their investment profile, with their investment portfolio, and they don't just make the most important thing, which is just put money into the market. Just put money into the market. Having excess cash around in an inflationary environment is going to do nothing but nibble away at the underlying value of your cash. So if you've got cash sitting in the bank and you've got an emergency fund set aside, $3,000 to $5,000, enough to cover 3 months of your expenses should something terrible happen. You always want to have an emergency fund sitting in cash. I recommend putting that in a high interest savings account. For example, I've used Wealthfront for this before, and I've used Robinhood for this before. However, with the recent Fed cuts, those are no longer a viable option. I currently use Citi Accelerated Savings. So Citi has a low fee, and if you keep a minimum deposit, you don't pay the fee. It's $4.50 a month. But if you keep a $1,000 balance, I believe, you don't pay that $4.50 fee. But again, Citi Accelerated Savings is currently what I'm using for my emergency fund because they have 1.9% interest on your savings account. So that's free money. Same reason why I use a credit card that gives me 2% cash back and everything for all of my purchases, because I like free money. And this is why I invest every single Monday, because I like free money. And if I just invest and build my portfolio up over time, and I'm patient and I invest in the right things, don't even have to be that accurate with what I invest in. Just put money in the market. Markets go up. Give them enough time. Particularly cryptocurrency, gold, silver, and stocks. All right. Stocks are going to go up. Stocks are going to go up. The Fed is going to continue to print money. The stock market is not indicative of the economy, although we might see another big sell-off in the stock market. Overall, stocks are going to do well moving forward. Just because the market crashes, not because the market crashes, just because the dollar is deflating in value, these things are going to take a long time to play off. So again, I am not of the opinion that investing in the stock market is a bad idea. I don't think there's any disincentive with that. I think that if you want the stock market to fail, that has nothing to do with your opinion on central bank policy. Centralization of the monetary supply is not a sustainable strategy, and we will see in our lifetimes a movement away from that if we are going to proceed as a human species. It is responsible. Like, for example, if you go back and study the Great Depression, it was not non-interventionism. It was not a failure of capitalism that caused the market crash in 1929. It was the direct intervention of the government and the banks for the decade preceding up to 1929. So market crashes are not the failure of capitalism. They are a direct result of government intervention. Moving right along. So we are in a pretty interesting area. We're in a pretty interesting area of resistance, however, for Bitcoin. I would say we're in a corridor between where we're currently at, around 9,600 to about 10.5. Looking at something like the weekly time frame, I would like to see Bitcoin break above 10.5. Maybe making your first initial allocation to a breakout long there would be good. Breaking above 12,000. I would be pretty darn bullish. I would be very, very, very aggressive in looking for scaled longs and breakout longs at that point in time. However, I am currently in a short position. All right, I'm currently in a short position. I'm making a contrary play. I am spot long. But I do have a short position with leverage on. Right, that's something that I'm going to be building as well as. So basically, at the highs, as Bitcoin continues to range, because it's overall still ranging. As Bitcoin approaches the highs, I'll be putting on shorts and increasing my short position. As Bitcoin approaches the lows, I'll be increasing my short position, just using my ISA spot over the next few days, and I'll be posting those signals until we get a significant break of this range, because I do feel that in whatever direction the market moves now, whatever direction Bitcoin moves now on high volatility will be the trigger, and we're going to continue to see price moving that way. So if we break to the downside, we're probably going to go back to retest. Again, a lot of signs pointing to 6,500. That's what I would feel. We can see that if we go over and look at our long-term volume profile analysis right here. This is the weekly time frame. We are again this is the third time really, but for the fourth time would be this time where we actually did crest above this on the weekly time frame. But we are failing. We are stalling out at the same resistance, the upper channel. And again, I talked about this, guys. I said once we get into once we break past 8,000, 8,200, we're going to accelerate all the way to the top of the band. We did that. I was right about that. We're at the top of the band right now, and we're stalling out. Now, if we can see Bitcoin put in a big old green weekly candle and just really dispel everything, I would again be pretty hyper bullish. That would probably give us a weekly close above 10.5. But right now, I'm feeling pretty cautious. I'm feeling pretty cautious about the markets. I do think that there is some attractiveness to looking for intraday longs as Bitcoin sweeps down to its lows, but we're just going to have to watch this range fairly closely. This is just one of those areas of the market where I am forced to play it safe as far as my trading account goes. As far as my investment account goes, keep buying Bitcoin because we are going to see it a higher price in 2020, at the end of 2020, at the end of 2021. It is going to go up. The current economic condition is very, very poised for Bitcoin, Ethereum, gold, silver, all good investments to outperform and absolutely crush traditional markets. But again, don't ignore traditional markets, right? I'm not slipping in my allocations to things like Johnson & Johnson, the 3M, some of my favorite dividend paying stocks. I've increased my positions in those over the last month. So definitely not slipping on my on my traditional portfolio as well. And again, that might not be the right approach for everybody. A lot of people come in here that are very crypto centric and they're like, stocks are bad, stocks are evil, corporations are evil, Bitcoin is the way, is the future. That's a fine opinion to have, but I think that you're missing out on portfolio diversification. And I think that overall investing in high quality stocks is a good way to go. Irregardless isn't a real word. I'm trying to break myself of that habit. Regardless of your opinions on central bank policy and money printing policy, which is, of course, unproductive and not helpful to the future of society. But that doesn't make stocks or corporations evil. The corporate model is highly successful. That's not going anywhere. The stock model is highly successful. That's not going anywhere. Those actually make our lives much easier and create more transparency and more accountability for business and for consumer involvement in the economy. With that being said, all right. So we talked about 10.5 and 12K leading us to new all-time highs. Potential bearish signs. We do have some weak bearish divergence and downwards trend lines on all of our indicators. That's with our classical analysis. I talked about this. RSI is kind of hinting that we are breaking above this. We do have 2 weekly candles that are above this, but money flow and Stokes running into that same level of resistance. We can also see that kind of weak bearish div on Minx as well. Here we can see the high, and we have a lower high, but a higher high. So again, that is some hidden bearish divergence, not full on bearish divergence because we don't have a higher high in price, but some weak not weak, but hidden bearish divergence coming in from things like Minx. Of course, Parallax has flipped negative. It's been negative for several days now, but again, Parallax, this would be the probably third time Parallax might hint at chopping us around. But again, watching the daily close will be important. Now, hash rate, we can take a look at hash rate. Let's go over to Glassnodes because, of course, we've been commentating on hash rate. We are going to be having a difficulty adjustment later on today. But we can see hash rate has continued to decline. This is only going to the 13th. So maybe this is the newest data that I can get. Let's take the 7-day moving average off. Okay, cool. I can get us to yesterday, which is good. Let's take a gander at hash rate. Hash rate has continued to decline. Hash rate has taken a big plunge. We have a negative difficulty adjustment coming in today from all indications. That's going to be coming up here in just a couple of hours. So we're going to see how the network responds. Overall, we haven't seen... So we have seen minor capitulation, like hash rate is down almost 40%. I think it's a little bit more than 40%. So hash rate has declined quite a bit. This is exactly what we expected. We haven't seen the resultant sell-off. This week, as I said last week, the price action over the next few days and what we see coming in from the network is going to be fairly important. With this new difficulty adjustment, if miners that were kind of holding on are able to be profitable again or break even, at least, then they may not begin selling their excess BTC. And as I said last week, there is some game theory to this, right? It's not just a simple math equation where miners are unprofitable, so they just start unloading like they have no context for what's going on. All eyes are on the miners, right? And I think that miners have a lot of faith in Bitcoin. They want Bitcoin to succeed. This is their industry. They've invested a lot of money into their mining operations. And they know that if they begin selling, because they really need to cover expenses, then that is going to trigger a market panic. And that is going to contribute to a drop in Bitcoin's price. Now, a drop in Bitcoin's price is not a bad thing. It's a healthy thing. If we see Bitcoin's price drop back down to 6,000 or 5,000 or even 4,000, that's fine. It's an opportunity to accumulate more. Bitcoin is a high value asset. It is a strong demand argument moving forward. So I don't really care what price Bitcoin is. It will continue to rise given enough time. But, certainly nobody enjoys sitting through a bear market. Nobody enjoys sitting through a decline in Bitcoin's price because the net values of our portfolios go down in the short term. But those of us who trade are exposed to profitable trade setups if we short sell, which we do. All right, so hash rate continuing to decline. Negative difficulty adjustment coming in later today. Let's see. I would say, in traditional markets, let's take a look at the SPY while we're here. Oh, come on, man. Wrong button, sorry. S&P 500 mini futures are pumping. We've got some very bullish bullish activity coming out of the traditional markets today, but market sentiment is from the headlines are fairly negative, right? But as I said, helicopter cash is continuing to push us up in the markets. Of course, we called oil and PDBC long for the group. Those trades are soaring very well. We're also long on gold and silver, which have overperformed moving into the end of last week. And I'd say that the nervousness coming from traditional markets is due to the tensions, as I said, between the United States and China. So Trump recently blocked Huawei, the phone manufacturer, from semiconductor parts as the latest attack. This is relatively negative moving forward. The market certainly doesn't like this. Also, some negative things coming out is India has extended their lockdown to May 31st. And they, regardless of your opinion, India does have a large impact on global markets, particularly commodity markets. They are the third largest consumer of oil around the world. So the rising oil prices certainly aren't good for the Indian economy, and we can see this coming through with the INR, the Indian rupee, the currency being devalued or moving down in the Forex markets. Now, there's no high impact news for the dollar coming out this week, and Jerome Powell was on CNBC last night warning investors, and I think that because of this, we're going to see an increased demand for cash in the US dollar moving forward this week as well. Last night, Powell said that we might not see economic recovery until 2021, at least here in the United States. GDP in the United States could contract 30% in the second quarter, and that we could potentially see unemployment as high as 25%, which is pushing Great Depression stats. We're already in the ballpark for unemployment. If you look at the adjusted figures for Great Depression levels, we are, and as I said, I've talked about this for a long time. We are going to see this, right? This is unavoidable. We are moving into a global recession, potentially a global depression. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that can pull us out of this. And right now, more than ever, it is critical to have valuable skills that can bring in income. Money is going to continue to be sloshing around in the market, so traders can make a lot of money. You can do this if you are an active investor. You can do this if you are a passive investor. Learn to manipulate the financial markets to make active income. Set up side hustles. Diversify your skill set. Get multiple forms of passive income coming in because the old days of just being able to rely on one job and one form of income for the majority of human beings across the world is not going to be a very sustainable model moving forward. Now, this is not necessarily true if you are a highly specialized worker. So for example, if you are a highly specialized programmer or developer or scientist or mathematician, or if you are a specialist in the STEM fields, more broadly speaking, then you're kind of fine. But for the majority of individuals who do not have those specialized skill sets, you are going to need to hustle harder because you have not optimized yourself to be very attractive to employers moving forward for high-paying jobs. You have to have strong STEM skills. You have to have strong STEM credentials to really get those good, attractive, high-paying jobs. Now, you can either do that and move into that and invest on the side, or you can focus on what you can do if those aren't your natural talents: trading, investment, making media, finding hustles, doing graphic design. There's all kinds of things that individuals can do. So go out there, diversify your skill set, hustle, learn to trade. I highly recommend you learn to trade. It's been absolutely responsible for my active form of income and has been a blessing throughout my whole life. Now, looking more globally, the euro is performing okay over in the Eurozone. Sentiment about the coronavirus in the Eurozone seems to be a bit more positive than elsewhere. Lockdown restrictions continue to be eased down. But in the UK, the GDP is being hit pretty hard. It was trading down pretty dramatically last week. And a lot of this comes because there's not a good deal with Brexit on the cards, right? And a lot of concern about that. There is one more talk scheduled, and they don't have a deal yet. So this is overall negative. Investors don't like uncertainty. Again, a deal or no deal would be better than uncertainty, right? And we'll be covering some Google censorship here in a little bit. We'll be talking about more Google censorship. Something interesting that came up in my feed is, I don't know if you guys were familiar with TBDC or tethered Bitcoin, but this was an attempt to bring a trustless Bitcoin, a trustless version of Bitcoin to the Ethereum network. So this was a smart contract that actually locked up Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin was locked up, it opened up or distributed an equivalent amount of TBTC on the Ethereum network. This was live on the mainnet for 2 days and has been sacked. And comments from the development team, this is from the people who make KeepKey, comments from the creators were, smart contracts are hard to build. So overall, this was not a successful venture. I think that Ethereum is going to continue to try doing this, but this was not a successful project. Matt Luongo commenting here, TBDC lasted on mainnet 2 days. Alas, it was born before its time. Good night, sweet prince. We've pulled the red lever, pausing deposits for the next 10 days and are helping users drain funds. We'll publish a full postmortem when confirmed, and we will rise again. So we'll see. A lot of attempts have been made to do this. Of course, wrapped Bitcoin is, WBTC is a popular form of tokenized Bitcoin on the Ethereum contract. But the problem with wrapped Bitcoin is that it's fairly centralized. It does rely on centralized companies to keep wrapped Bitcoin going, whereas TBDC trustless Bitcoin was designed to be a fully decentralized protocol for this, running fully off of smart contracts. But again, we've talked about smart contracts before. And again, while it's cool and I'm involved in smart contracts, again, I talked about my recent allocations into ERC20 tokens utilizing the Uniswap platform. And I like the Uniswap. I'm not providing liquidity on the Uniswap platform. You still want to be careful making massive allocations and locking up your money with smart contracts when I think it's like 50% of all smart contracts have at least one identified security flaw, and 20% I believe have like known bugs that can lose money. So this is still experimental. It's decentralized finance is awesome. The Ethereum network is awesome, but you just have to be careful and use your head around you. And of course, we'll be talking about Bitmex here in just a little bit. They're now involved in a pretty scathing lawsuit in Northern California. Overall, my opinion on this is that it is, I don't want to say it's a frivolous lawsuit because I certainly have my complaints about Bitmex, but I don't know. Let's just say that I'm certainly against government regulation, and I know that government wants their piece of the pie. So anytime they start throwing around this money transmission service and talk about protecting investors, I really start rolling my eyes. For all of Bitmex's faults, they use we can argue that Bitmex utilizes their system overload and systemic system shutdowns to take advantage of traders, but they don't steal your money, right? They create an environment where they will take your money from you if you are actively trading, but they don't just rob your deposits, okay? So they exaggerate their system. So I don't think that government intervention is what we need. If Bitmex is stealing funds, then users will stop using Bitmex, and that's what we're seeing. Right, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing Bitmex naturally wane of its own accord. We don't need big daddy government to come in and tell us what to do or put penalties or sanctions or restrictions on anybody to protect us. They don't want to protect us. They just want a cut of the pie, right? So what's the way around this? Go trade on ByBit, all right? That's what we do. ByBit is the best platform to trade Bitcoin futures products, and they continue to add more stuff. So Deribit's awesome for options. Go trade options on Deribit. Go trade futures on ByBit. You guys can trade with us. They're always offering bonuses. ByBit.krakencryptocurrency.com. Link in the description. If you use that link, I think you get an extra margin bonus, but you guys definitely go check it out. That's where we trade. All right. So getting back into price real quick before we get into today's news. Talked about Bitcoin on the daily time frame here. You're looking at the breaking Bitcoin system. We are looking like we are potentially going to be closing below the daily baseline again today. So a close below the daily baseline or a crack below the breaking Bitcoin initiator would certainly be an invitation to hedge for traders. That would be your trigger signal for that. We've had a little bit of chop over the last week. Some traders are a little exhausted by that, but it is what it is. The system is going to tell us the most likely statistical thing to do. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's taking small losses along the way so that we avoid a big loss moving down into the future. Anybody who was with us for the March meltdown was glad that they were hedged for this big decline in price. Anybody that was with us was glad that they went spot long on this whole run up. So if we will recall, right, Bitcoin, a trader should have been spot long since price closed above the baseline all the way back in March. All right, so let's talk about this for a little bit. All right, so the USD value of your portfolio should be up over 30%. Okay, traders following our strategy are up over 30% in USD value on top of their trading proceeds simply by holding Bitcoin at the right place. Okay, and we've had small losses over the last few weeks, 2 of them, because price has been choppy. And guess what? That is not equal to 33%. So you are still up in USD profit by holding Bitcoin at the right point in time. And when price cracks below the baseline, breaks below the initiator, and actually puts in a bearish decline, you will be up another 10, 15, 20%. Right? So these things wash. You need to give them enough time. On the 4-hour time frame. On the 4-hour time frame, we can see Bitcoin is a little bit choppy. We do have a little bit of if we look at the noise line here, the noise line is signaling a little bit of regular bearish divergence because we do have a higher high in price action, but a lower low in the noise line. The noise line is good to watch because it's a simple moving average, or it's a moving average, depends on your smoothing system, of the Minx line. The Minx line is designed to very dramatically catch price tops and bottoms and catch trending movements. But the noise line is good for spotting divergence because it's just simply easier to see. So we do have some regular bearish divergence on the 4-hour coming in from BTC. Overall, we are still in this trading range that we've established with this floor at 9,300 and a high around 9,800. We haven't really had a good 4-hour close above that. And I want to point out, obviously, where the breaking Bitcoin initiator is on the daily. It's sitting down at 92.61. So a daily close below 92.61. I know it's a bit away from price where we are right now, but that will certainly be a trigger for full risk shorts if we get down and close the daily below 92.61. I do expect us, after this first failed attempt, to most likely descend further and have full risk trades. Getting back down there, if we were to see where our take profit levels are for a short, just looking at where we are currently right now, we would be down looking between 9,000 and 7,800. So if we go ahead and take price down another $600, we'd be looking at 7,200 ultimately for the lower downside target. And I think we might actually see 6,500 if not lower. But again, I don't want to spread FUD or fear. The charts will tell us exactly in which direction to trade. All right. So looking at the 4-hour time frame here, the 4-hour Minx is about to signal an at-risk short. We've had several successful 4-hour buy signals. The last one was over here, leading to this nice run up. And then we had another one right here, leading to this protracted run up, hitting TP1, 2, not 3. Obviously, this run up, this buy signal gave us TP1, 2, and 3. And the bottom feeder signals got us well positioned for this accumulation phase in BTC here. Cybot's quiet on the 4-hour front. And Minx is overall quiet on the 4-hour front. But we are potentially looking at a 4-hour short, but we are above the daily baseline, so it will not... It just depends. If we're below the daily baseline, then the 4-hour Minx signal will trigger because I'm using the baseline filter, which is a built-in feature for premium members, of course. Getting a little bit more granular, looking at the 2-hour time frame. 2-hour time frame is not signaling for at-risk shorts yet because we're still above the daily baseline. We've had some successful bottom feeder trades here, here, and here. We've had some successful Mink trades as well. This one was not a good trade. This was a good trade. This was a good trade leading to these run-ups. So overall, things are pretty quiet. Cybot and bottom feeder are, of course, quiet on the 2-hour time frame. So not a whole lot to do right now. Shorts do appear to be emerging as the attractive direction to trade. But overall, I think that the better strategy is just to trade this range until we get a nice breakout. On the 45-minute time frame, coming down here, we are trading below today's point of control after a failed breakout and after this pretty steep sell-off down to 9,400. So we attempted to get back up, formed a lower high, and have since sold off. ISA spot called this local high pretty good. We can see that we didn't actually generate a buy signal, but we were in buying conditions right here. It's just the crossover didn't happen exactly the way it's supposed to, but it did lead to that nice 1 to 2% trade to the upside on this last little run up. I would overall be out of this position, and ISA spot is about to descend back into the lower territories. And if we do cross over here, we'd actually get a little bit of bullish divergence on the intraday. That's why I said kind of as we're moving to the lows, scooping up some longs, as we move to the highs, scooping up some shorts, and overall just playing the range. And then moving into a bigger position, depending on which way we break, I think is probably the best strategy moving forward. We do have a pretty high premium on price, and that's why I don't think we've been able to break out of this range. So bulls are still relatively overall in control. Zuhair Nakvi, thank you so much for the $2 tip, my friend. He says, what are my thoughts on the longs to shorts ratios? I don't really think they're overall that interesting. I was keeping my eye on them. So if we take a look at the overall longs to shorts ratios, we are now in bearish territory, which would favor the shorts. We are currently sitting at 3.60 longs to shorts. It's not unnatural for more leveraged longs to be on than leveraged shorts. That's totally fine. It's almost always like that. But again, I would say that currently we favor the shorts with price breaking below the breaking Bitcoin initiator. The longs to shorts ratio needs to get back above 4. For us to be bullish again and see a really mass influx of longs back into the market. But again, we see the same thing in longs to shorts ratios. They're getting relatively choppy. It's been relatively choppy, the same with Bitcoin's price over the last week, whereas Bitcoin dominance, USDT dominance has been a fairly clear metric to track. If we look at longs on their own, we can see that they have increased from 216 million up to where they currently sit around 300 million. But shorts have increased fairly dramatically as well from 51.6 million to where they currently sit at about 82.8 million. So shorts are still in relatively bearish territory. Longs are still in relatively bearish territory. So again, just a lot of chop. So we look at the overall longs to shorts ratios. I would say that we're in relatively bearish territory. Furthermore, so if we crack down below 3.18, but overall, I mean, these are coming from Bitfinex, and I don't really use these to trade with much anymore. Yeah, that's about all I got. I'm sorry, man. Thank you so much for the $2 tip, though. I highly appreciate that. Hopefully you are crushing it, Mr. Nakvi. I gotta take this time to pump the channel, guys. Make sure to hit the like button. Of course, the like goal for today's video is 50 likes. If you guys like the content, the coverage, the trade setups, make sure to push us up there in the rankings. And we are 20 subs away. 20 subs away from 8,000 subs. So can we do it today? Yes, we can. You guys know you can do it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet already, help us get to 8K. Smash that subscribe button, guys. If you hit the bell, you'll be notified every single day when we go live. Thank you guys so much for the support. All right. So again, I think that encompasses my thoughts there pretty well. Looking at Bitcoin CME futures, no gaps to fill. We're A-okay. And you can see, again, we are struggling. After filling that gap, we are rejecting from that upper boundary of the upper gap right now. Again, I was pretty surprised that we ascended all the way up to fill that gap immediately, but we did. And so there's no more magnets, guys. No more magnets. Gaps have been filled. Gaps have been filled. All right. All right, so we're going to get into today's news. If you guys have any questions, make sure to drop them in the chat. But let's get going with today's Crypto Currently episode. Then we're going to bring the team on to discuss price. All right, so Bitmex, of course, Bitmex, the world famous derivatives exchange for cryptocurrency, has just seen a lawsuit filed against it. The lawsuit claims that the platform was deliberately designed from the ground up to facilitate a variety of illegal activities. All right, these are the allegations, at least, that were made in a high-profile new lawsuit, which was just filed by BMA LLC, BIMA, in the United States District Court, for the Northern District of California on May 16th. Now, in this lawsuit, Bitmex, or at least its parent company, HDR Global Trading, and their top executives, including Arthur Hayes, Ben Dello, and Samuel Reed. I don't know if you guys have ever thought about that. HDR Global Trading, Hayes, Dello, Reed, right? All stand accused of engaging in or abetting in a list of crimes that include racketeering, money laundering, wire fraud, and operating an unlicensed money transmitting business. I'm going to have some pretty strongly worded comments for that last one. But in this legal filing, they describe Bitmex as operating in a, quote, brazenly lawless manner, end quote. as well as generally engaging in illegal activities, the magnitude of which they purport to be, quote, truly staggering, end quote. Now, the plaintiffs claim that Bitmex executives maintain close connections to the United States and to the state of California, despite their claims to the contrary, thus why the lawsuit was filed in the Northern District of California. And the lawsuit cites several sources, which claim that 15% of Bitmex's 2019 trading volume, which is about $138 billion, is attributable to United States traders, regardless of the fact that they IP ban or any of that stuff, right? We all know, come on. Win scrap. They also point to the exchange's own publicly available data, which indicates that Bitmex has processed an average of $3 billion, Bitmex processes an average of $3 billion in money transfers daily. All of this without being licensed as a money transmission business in the United States. Furthermore, according to the plaintiffs, this represents a record volume for such an unlawful activity in the entire history of financial regulation in the United States. So congratulations, Bitmex. You have staggered even the United States financial regulators, right? Now, Bitmex's parent company, as I said, is HDR Global Trading, Hayes, Dello, Reed, who, as I said, their name is ostensibly an acronym for the executives, right? Arthur Hayes, Ben Dello, and Samuel Reed. And they're purportedly based in the Seychelles. And it's funny in the argument, they quote one public statement from Arthur Hayes, the CEO of Bitmex, who was asked why the business was incorporated in the Seychelles. And he said, well, because it is cheaper to bribe the Seychelles government than the United States. And when asked how much he had paid the Seychelles authorities to register Bitmex in their jurisdiction, Arthur stated, well, a coconut. So not the most inclusive statement, but if we take a look at the specific accusations that are being leveled by BMA LLC, it alleges that Bitmex conspired in their operations of the business. Let's actually pull open the actual amendment here. Engaging in a pattern of racketeering activity that includes market manipulation, wire frauds, fraudulent business dealings, and a number of illicit schemes. The lawsuit, of course, notes how Bitmex offers traders extremely high leverage, up to 100x, when trading their highly illiquid derivatives, which they claim is calculated based on the prices of liquid derivatives based on the prices of 2 or 3 illiquid spot exchanges, according to their allegations. Now, they say that Bitmex enables manipulators and money launderers to operate illicitly by allowing them to open an unlimited amount of anonymous and unverified accounts with no trade or withdrawal limits, which honestly sounds like my libertarian paradise. The lawsuit goes on to accuse Bitmex of, let's say, weaponizing deliberate server free, so that they utilize, and this is something that we've talked about, this is true, that they weaponize deliberate server freezes and they use these fraudulent system overload events in order to accept or reject specific trading orders during volatile market conditions. And this is to exacerbate price fluctuations, which triggers a maximum number of liquidations. Again, that is my belief. It's the only thing that makes sense, because I mean, they've been doing this for a long time, and they can't build a engine that doesn't go down. Those who are a little bit more favorable or maybe a little bit more lenient on Bitmex. For example, I've talked to some developers who've said, yeah, man, it's really hard to build a system like that. And they do the right thing. Instead of, filling traders at prices where, they would basically glitch up the system, they just shut the system down. The system just locks up, which is better than, just getting randomly filled. Like, say you go to market buy, and if it allowed your order to go through at a market buy, well, you would get filled on a wick and price would already be down 3%. But I would rather have that happen, I guess, in my opinion. I just prefer the system be up all the time and work properly, right? Because we have other platforms that don't crash, like ByBit, right? Never had an issue with it. All of this allegedly adds up to making Bitmex an exquisite designer tool for bad actors to manipulate cryptocurrency markets and launder the proceeds of their crimes, again, according to the allegations. Now, the lawsuit also highlights how, despite several denials to the contrary, that Bitmex operates its own for-profit trading desk, one that purportedly trades against its own customers on the platform, using inside information about its customers' existing trading positions. Again, Bitmex has continued to deny this, that they do operate a dealing desk platform. I also have a video about this. Does Bitmex trade against you? Where I don't really go into the details of them operating a third-party service, but I do certainly go into the details of how dealing desk operations work traditionally. Now, the full details of the extensive allegation runs to over 100 pages. It can be found here. The link will be below in the description for you guys to check this out if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of this. It's been recently reported that Bitmex continues to see a sharp decline in both open interest and volume for its Bitcoin futures market following the historic crash in March that resulted in record liquidations due to the failure of the liquidation engine, along with struggling to fend off competitors such as ByBit and Binance Futures. Rightly so, because they have been pretty fraudulent for a long time. Now, in the wake of the so-called Black Thursday crash, holdings of Bitcoin on the Bitmex platform saw a decline of 40% between March 13th and April 9th. Rightly so. Controversy has been swirling since then, since the March meltdown, surrounding what, according to Bitmex's developers, it were two DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, which triggered downtime on the platform. And that has since prompted many industry commentators to accuse the exchange of being responsible for Bitcoin hitting rock bottom lows in March. As I said, this is clearly true. Bitmex failed to operate as a logical exchange once it passed below 5,000. Whereas other platforms did not see such a significant decline in price. This was due to the rolling liquidation engine, and there was just simply no buy-side volume left on the books. There were more liquidations on the books than volume all the way down to zero. If they would not have shut the liquidation engine off, they say it was a botnet attack. If they wouldn't have shut the liquidation engine off, I believe that they shut it off manually, then Bitcoin's price would have crashed to zero that day. It would have rebounded pretty quickly, but still, everyone would have got liquidated that was long. Now, it was just a month ago in early April when we reported on what seemed like the biggest class action case in crypto history. This is when a series of lawsuits were filed in a New York district court. And of course, Bitmex was named among the 7 crypto firms allegedly implicated in violating U.S. security laws. Covered this earlier. And you guys can, of course, go check out our coverage on that in this Breaking Bitcoin Bits episode, where I talked about this. We look at the $1 trillion lawsuit that's being levied against Bitfinex. You know, it will always come after the fact. Individuals will always come out, whether the lawsuits are frivolous. All right. Now, the video link for this will be below, but it seems since the 2017 boom and bust, and now the 2020 meltdown, there are a lot of financially ruined individuals out there. Individuals who just bought and held Bitcoin, doing fine. Individuals who put it all into Bitmex or Binance, doing pretty terrible. Potentially looking for restitution. And of course, those people are looking for restitution for their losses because they chose to play around in the volatile crypto casinos over the past few years, instead of learning how to trade responsibly. We will, of course, be following this story and keeping you guys up to date with any developments in the story moving forward. Of course, let me give my 2 cents on this, right? This is a pretty tricky subject because, for me anyways, overall, I am against government regulation. And I think that when we get into this whole idea of money transmitting business, Bitmex serves a need. Individuals want to transact in Bitcoin and they want to bypass the existing system. And I am relatively all for that. I think that it is, I have warned against using Bitmex for a long time. I think that ByBit is a far better platform. I do not know whether or not Bitmex operates a trading desk. It wouldn't seem to surprise me based on some of the data and information that we come in here, but I don't have the information on that, right? Certainly, it is in an exchange's best interest to not. It is in an exchange's best interest to not engage in activities that would tick off their clients because they will lose market share. But at the same time, Bitmex hasn't seen a lot of competition, or at least it didn't in the early days of its existence. So throughout 2018, Bitmex was clearly king. For a lot of 2019, Bitmex is clearly king. But it's not 2018 anymore. It's 2020. And we have real competitors that offer better products and services like ByBit, like Binance Futures, like Femex, like FTX. And I think as a result of this, we are either going to see Bitmex clean up their act or they're going to go the way of the dinosaur. Because again, we have platforms that do not engage in this type of activity, right? ByBit, for example, again, Femex, FTX, Binance Futures is questionable, but I would argue that again, the activity on Binance Futures is far cleaner than the activity on Bitmex. So I still trade on Bitmex as far as alt BTC futures go. It's just because I've done that for a long time and I'm comfortable trading over there, but I do not trade Bitcoin perpetuals or Bitcoin futures on Bitmex anymore. Simply out of principle, because that's the largest volume that I trade. I do that almost all exclusively on ByBit. Yeah. Now, the big impetus for this, I never believe that protecting consumers is the reason for any of this stuff. I think that that's not true. I think that we are just pushing forward an agenda with our financial regulation of claiming to protect retail investors, when really what we're wanting to do is create opportunities for our institutional investors to take advantage of retail clients, and not appreciating it when independent third parties crop up that take advantage of retail traders and don't give the government and the regulators a slice of the pie. So I think that a lot of this business, a lot of this, where the SEC is going to attack it, if they do attack it, is going to be from the money transmitting business and clients inside the United States. I don't like that. Clients in the United States should be able to trade or transact freely with whatever platform they want to trade on, with whoever they want to exchange funds with. I think that a large majority of all of this protecting consumer stuff is nonsense. I'm not for regulation. I'm not for telling people what they can and cannot do with their money. If people want to put their money on Bitmex and lose it, that's their business. And again, the free market decides, just as the free market is deciding with how individuals utilize platforms. Bitmex is seeing their funds being withdrawn. And ultimately, if they piss off the wrong people, then, real world consequences happen. I think that's the way it should be. So, yeah, that's my opinion on that. I don't think that probably a good majority of anybody involved in any of these lawsuits really have an earnest interest. Certainly the U.S. government doesn't have an earnest interest in protecting the actual citizens or recouping their losses. They just don't like the fact that Bitmex is operating outside of their control, which I am all for. Again, I'm all for, if we're going to apply a rule to Bitmex, we're going to have to apply it broadly to everybody, right? We can't just say we don't like Bitmex, so it should operate like this. The rules should apply equally to everybody. So I think that people should be able to transact and trade and deposit funds wherever they want with no fear of government regulation, and so should the companies. And the market will decide if the business owners, the business operators run an unscrupulous operation, then traders will naturally move to another platform, which is what we're seeing. Bitmex is already potentially on its way out of going the way of the dinosaur. So be careful. If they are going the way of the dinosaur, maybe they're going to ramp up their funds, right? You've been warned. I don't recommend trading on Bitmex. All right. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Again, for my dislike about Bitmex, it's easy to jump on the bandwagon of like, yeah, this lawsuit's so awesome, get them. But I'm not for that. I think the free market should decide. I don't want to see big daddy government stepping in and telling individuals what they can and cannot do, because that just sets a horrible precedent. So have faith that individuals can regulate their own selves, and that we don't need big daddy government to tell us what to do. Now, YouTube, in our second story here, YouTube does seem to be appear at it again. I'm quoting Bitcoin billionaire Tyler Winklevoss, part owner of the Gemini exchange. He was writing in a Twitter post when he was criticizing the video platform for removing videos by Dr. Nut M. Witkowski. Dr. Witkowski is an epidemiologist. He's been a pretty staunch critic of our nation's current coronavirus lockdown strategy. He's the former head of biostatistics and epidemiology and research design at Rockefeller University. And he had a video that racked up about 1.3 million views before it was deleted from YouTube's platform. So this is Mr. Tyler's tweet. Tweeting his support for Dr. Witkowski, Winklevoss wrote that the developments were disturbing and that he was starting to forget what country he lives in. And obviously, the pandemic has the potential to shift public opinion towards decentralized alternatives to YouTube and social media, particularly with this continuing trend of censorship cropping up. YouTube has been under fire in recent weeks, not only from us, but other creators, for heavily censoring content creators during this pandemic, elevating what they call authoritative sources, and the widely criticized World Health Organization, which stands accused of being corrupted by the CCP and misleading the global community on the nature of the pandemic, which emerged out of China in the first place. So a lot of bad stuff, man. And censoring content that's critical of the WHO is only one matter. They've had a very heavy-handed approach to this content moderation, but the crypto community has been crying foul for months now, right? Popular crypto YouTubers have been banned, shadow banned, censored, throttled because they're talking about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency topics. And this seems to have only ramped up since the outbreaks have begun and this economic crisis has begun to unfold. So, so this video is probably officially demonetized, but what do you guys think, right? The majority of you are watching us on YouTube right now, and I'm sure that you have seen some of your favorite YouTubers getting censored or affected by the YouTube moderation blitz. Do you feel this is a starting point to feel, again, what I'm concerned about is a more authoritarian approach, right? Utilizing, as I said, let no good crisis go to waste. Certainly, I'm not. Coronavirus is a threat, is a danger. I'm not certainly not in the opposing of that camp. I was, if you recall, if you've been watching me for months before this thing even kicked off, I was recommending that people get emergency stores of food and go out and buy all the stuff that you should have bought. Wear masks. I'm very pro that. I wear a mask when I go out in public, right? It is certainly a threat and a danger, right? However, we are seeing individuals, we're seeing nation states, we're seeing vaccine producers, we're seeing YouTube take advantage of this situation to push forward an agenda that they already had, right? An agenda that they already had. And that's where I draw the line. That's where I don't like it, right? There's very little room for dissent or differing opinion here on this platform or in anywhere that social media is heavily moderated. So let us know. Please let us know your comments in the section down below. And make sure to support the show. Again, shadow banning is the thing. So smashing the like button really does help us out. It does help boost us up there in the search rankings and maybe combat against the algorithm there. And of course, subscribing helps us out. I think just a few minutes ago, we were 20 subs away from 8K. And of course, the like goal for the day is 50 likes. So help us out, guys. Thank you guys so much. Now, our last story of the day. It's going to be just an overview of kind of the narrative for Bitcoin bullishness moving forward. Money printer go burr. Now, on Wednesday last week, Fed Chair Jerome Powell gave a very somber report about the state of the economy. He said that additional fiscal support is going to be required to avoid lasting damage to the global economy. And that promptly sent markets like the Dow down 500 points on a pretty bearish outlook. Now, Powell followed up his speech with an interview on 60 Minutes last night, where he made comments that served to underscore the importance of the digital scarcity that has been hard-coded into the Bitcoin protocol. Now, if we take a look at this Market Watch story, which covers Powell's appearance on 60 Minutes last night, Powell claimed that the Fed has, quote, no limit, end quote, to the ammunition and firepower that they can bring to the economic fight in order to mitigate the mounting financial turmoil. This, of course, harkens back just several, I think last month, when the previous representative of, I believe it was the New York Fed, appeared and said there's an unlimited amount of money at the Fed, right? And as many crypto enthusiasts will tell you, the more ammunition that the Fed exhausts, the better that is for Bitcoin. In their attempt to ease the widespread concerns of the American people over the future of the United States economy, Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell on CBS News 60 Minutes program yesterday, he came and explained that what is being done to try and avoid the next Great Depression. Powell claimed there was no limit to what they would do to help stimulate the economy. Keep in mind, they only control interest rates and print money. In a bid, this was a bid to assuage fears of the audience, right? And Powell was pretty bold, saying, we're not out of ammunition, not by a long shot. He said the central bank could lower interest rates, change its asset purchase strategy, and issue additional stimulus to small businesses and individuals struggling during the outbreak, regardless of the fact that the majority of the SBA loans and PPPs were snatched up by larger corporations that relatively shouldn't need them as opposed to small businesses. But all of this, of course, is adding up on the ever-growing balance sheet of the Fed, which is fast approaching $7 trillion. $7 trillion. And Powell addressed that deficit, stating that he hopes that they deal with that once the recovery is over and we get the pandemic resolved. Right? He said, quote, "It is true the deficits are going to be big for a couple of years here, and we'll have to deal with that. The time to deal with that, though, is when we're through with this recovery," he said. So just like back in 2008, they're going to push the deficits under the table. They're going to push the gaping holes in our economic monetary system under the table. Now, Mark Justra, he wrote in a op-ed piece here, he described the United States dollar as being on its final act. In an argument very familiar to many crypto fans and gold bugs, he highlighted how history reveals global reserve currencies to always fall out of power every 100 years or so. And as he so keenly pointed out, the collapse of a national currency is almost always precipitated by overspending on wars, overconsumption, excessive debt, and easy credit. Went on to note that the Fed is now the only buyer of U.S. government debt, and describes that their recent economic intervention efforts is pretty much the bad guy throwing his gun at the protagonist when he runs out of bullets. Right? I love that quote. That's a good one. Now, he claimed that it's just a mathematical certainty. The Fed will never, ever be able to normalize interest rates and will never unwind its bloated balance sheet. The truth is, the Fed's ammo is going to run out, or it's going to become as ineffective as an empty or jammed firearm. Okay? If the United States starts dying, and if it is on its final act, another mathematical certainty could provide the perfect solution. Right? Unlike the dollar that can be devalued with each new printing of fresh fiat, only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. Likely even less, given how much has been lost to time and the fact that individuals will always lose their Bitcoin. In fact, Satoshi wrote about this early in the Bitcoin Talk forum. Somebody said, well, actually the supply will just continue to contract because there's always going to be people who lose their Bitcoin. And Satoshi wrote, yeah, just consider it a donation to the value of everybody else's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is contactless, right? So great for pandemics. It's controlled by no third party. Policymakers like Powell cannot push off fiscal responsibility to future generations to deal with later. Remember, that interest is, taxation on generations that are yet to be born. Bitcoin came out of the 2008 financial crisis, the last major recession, as a means to give people an opportunity to get away from the economic suffering and loss of savings and investment at the hands of government and central bankers like Powell, like the system that we have right now. And the time is approaching for a change of the guard. And it's due in terms of a global reserve currency. We need a major shakeup, and it's dawning on most of the world's economies. And Bitcoin has mathematical certainty that gold does not have. That's its most appealing attribute at this time. It's the most appealing attribute at this time. Not to mention, right? Another thing that we need to be wary of, I wanted to cover this as well, right? The alternative to this is if we look over at what's happening in the East, okay? Here's why I'm an advocate for Bitcoin, right? Not only do we have mathematical certainty with Bitcoin, not only can we avoid the actual damage to our livelihoods with a sound form of money, there are far worse alternatives out there that are being proposed, right? Like, for example, a central bank digital currency and China's DCEP, digital currency electronic payment system, that although I covered this report last week and was fairly critical of it about, I can't remember who wrote it. The commentator was saying that, well, they don't have any plans to spread this worldwide. This is going to be localized. Okay. China has a very aggressive agenda to push the DCEP out. China has a very aggressive agenda to spread its global policy out. And if you want to take a look at recent reporting from Hong Kong, right? So I'm going to link these in the description down below after I post the video. But again, we just had a huge, basically physical fight where pro Hong Kong Democrats were thrown out of the legislative session. And the authority of the legislative session was usurped by a pro-Beijing, pro-China, pro-CCP cabinet member who was taking illegitimate control over the session. And I mean, let me see if I can find that picture. I mean, literally, people were physically thrown out. If you were pro-democracy, you were thrown out of this. Here's a video. I'll link all this down in the description below. So these are things that Western-style democracy has, for all of its faults, Western-style democracy has attempted to mitigate and push us away from authoritarianism, from centralized, authoritative, violent command and control. And our second most powerful superpower in the world right now utilizes violent, authoritative command and control tactics and concepts. And their philosophy maximizes the state over the individual. And this is everything that Western philosophy attempts to break away from. Gives us a framework for freedom and liberty. Democracy, freedom, and liberty were born out of these traditions. And Bitcoin is based on these same principles. Decentralization, liberty, freedom. They are conducive to that. They allow that, right? And we cannot let this die, okay? The future of the human species is by no means guaranteed, okay? And if we revert to this cycle of totalitarian control, fascism, or centralized control, which has worked, has kept us alive for thousands of years, it's not a model that's going to work anymore. It is unable to get us above and crest beyond our greatest threats, the greatest threats to the human species, which are basically being centralized on one planet. Sound money, democracy, freedom, liberty, these things can bring us together and allow us to, look at the advancements in science and technology that have come out of freedom. Look at how far the human species has come. Look at how the global standard of living has been raised by investing in human liberty and decency. And anybody that points to the contrary is missing the thread. Is missing the thread, man. Like, we have a chance to get off of this rock, to decentralize our genes across the world, across the stars. We have a chance to peer in and understand the laws of physics. We already understand pretty much all the laws of physics that govern our day-to-day life. We are starting to creep into the laws of physics that govern the universe that we don't fully understand. We are building technology that improves our form of daily life. We are starting to delve into the nature of consciousness itself with artificial intelligence. None of that is going to come out or be utilized well with a centralized command and control style government or model or money system. It's not going to happen. You're going to see regression. And we're not for regression. We're for moving forward. We're for pushing forward. So I'll leave these links in the description down below. So you get a chance to stand on you get a choice on what side of history you want to be on, right? You can be a coward and say, well, I am afraid to face the cold, dark uncertainty of existence on my own, so I'm going to suck into the hive and let Big Daddy government tell me what to do. And if they want to put their boot on my neck once in a while, that's okay. It's worth the price to pay. I'll let them rip my kid out of my arms and take my wife and let them do what they want. Or you can choose to be on the right side of history, which is scary and dangerous, and you're breaking new frontiers, where you say, you know what? I think that human life and liberty is valuable in and of itself, and I think that we should create a model that preserves and promotes that, right? I think Bitcoin follows along in those same paths. I think Bitcoin is a route to improve that. Bitcoin is a means to an end. It's a means to a better society. It's not a means in and of itself. And I think that personal responsibility and liberty is the most important thing that we can vie for as a species. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the section down below, guys. This is pretty heavy stuff, but this is the stuff you need to be thinking of, because we're at an inflection point in the world, right? We are at an inflection point, man. Everybody's so happy to rah, 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 let the dollar go down. What's going to replace it? What's going to replace it? Is the cure worse than the disease? In the case of a CBDC, I'd say yes. In the case of a decentralized crypto, I think not. I think that's a pretty darn good cure. See how Bitcoin's responding. Oh, look at that. See, you can tell I'm right because, Bitcoin put in a green candle. Bitcoin is responding. All right, with that being said, guys. I'm going to thank you guys for all the likes. 64 likes so far. Highly appreciated. I see 143 you guys watching on YouTube. 16 individuals watching on DLive. Thank you, DEFCON 201, for the follow today. Let's distribute these rewards in the DLive chest to our viewers. Got two homies holding it down over there on Twitch. Forex Meister, thank you so much for the 14th month subscription. Ooh, 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 ooh. Get some dancing activity going. All right, give me a second, guys. I'm going to see if anybody wants to come on and chit-chat about anything that we covered today. Johnny, Furry Boffin in the house? All right, cool. I got the guys on the line here. Let me get the Discord thing pushed open. There we go. Nope, that's not quite right. It's this one right here. There we go. Cool. Got the guys on the line here. Let me get the Discord.
Whoops.
Thing. Oh yeah. You're gonna have to mute that.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right.
All right. Anyways, pretty good show. What do we got? We got a lot of activities to that. A lot of responses to that. How are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty well. I got no complaints so far. Just kind of figuring out how Uniswap works. That's what I did this weekend. It's very simple. You know, they came out with version 2 today. You were talking about it.
Uniswap is fun to use. I did enjoy it. Listen, it took me like an hour to get it working the way that I wanted it to, and that's fine because I'm somewhat of a dinosaur. But once I got it working, I was really pleased with just how simple it is, right? You know, you just link your MetaMask. You know, you link your MetaMask to your ledger, and boom, bam, done.
Yeah, but that's what I was surprised about. Version 2 came out today, as in like in the last like 2 hours.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Any big updates?
Their user interface is way updated. They've got some nice little quality of life improvements. For instance, you know, when I was trying to do a swap yesterday, I was trying to get like the maximum amount of coin I could for the ether that I had in my wallet, but there was no max button. Now there's a max button.
Now there's a max button.
Yes, always good to have a max
going
button.
all in.
Yeah.
Gotta have that button.
But I mean, that's just like one small example. Like it's been live for 2 hours. It's just something I've noticed. But yeah, version 2's live.
Let me turn some tunes on here too. By the way, see how. Let's go to miss, sort, randomize list. There we go.
There are some questions that we should get to as well, though, Justin.
Let's do it.
Everyone's been hounding me for them.
All right, let's start with Wayne Arndt. Can you look at Ethereum Classic? Sure. Let's look at Ethereum Classic.
This might be better
Pull
to
that up
do
on mine
as a group
too.
of people, just to get more thoughts on the chart.
I don't know. More thoughts on a chart is not always better.
It's definitely not, definitely not always better. You're correct there. Let's just go ahead and slap some fib circles on there. Let's do it.
Yeah. Is you want Ethereum Classic on USD or the Bitcoin pairing? Because
I always look at USDT, and then you know, it's cool to look at the BTC, but I think that you can. I mean, relative to Bitcoin dominance and relative to the USDT pair, you can get a pretty good idea at what the BTC pair is doing if you look at the USDT pair.
yeah, we seem to have strong resistance at 675. I think it's gonna follow Bitcoin down here, likely.
Yeah, so looking at the USDT pair, I mean, very similar to the Bitcoin chart. I agree. You can see you break the breaking Bitcoin initiator bullish back here on the 23rd of March. And we keep that cycle. We have a few continuations and exits along the way. Well, what the heck was that? Oh, that was Mr. Hut QC, man. Thank you so much, my brother. Resubscribing for your 12th month, saying keep it up, mentor. Thank you so much, my friend. Hopefully I get to spend some more time with you this week. All right, anyway, so yeah, we broke above. We've had a really nice run in Ethereum Classic USDT. So this overall looks very similar to the Bitcoin chart to me, where we've broken down on a pretty bearish red candle. Waiting for an optimum entry would have been a little bit better. I think we were. Let's take a look at the baseline there and see what guidance. Yeah, and we can see this is pretty clear, right? So on this candle where we break down, we're below the entry qualifier. And we spend about 5 days below that entry qualifier. And where are we at right now? We're right in that nice, beautiful tunnel with a bearish breaking Bitcoin initiator and a bearish baseline. And we're in between the baseline and the entry qualifier. This is certainly this is like a gift. This is like a retest of resistance, right? And you're back right in that shelf of optimum entry. If we look at Minx, Minx doesn't have the daily topping below zero pattern that I know Alex likes to see. We see falling volatility here. I bet if we look at something like the Bollinger Bands, we'll go look at classical TA here in just a little bit. We're going to see contraction, and we can see that actually from the explosion level. Look at the explosion level contracting over the last week, and what follows contracting volatility, expansion. This chart would suggest that we're going to expand to the downside, but the nice thing about our trading strategy is that we wouldn't have to hold that fundamental position for very long, because we'll have knowledge if we close above the baseline and crack above the initiator. So this, I would be loading up shorts on this chart. Seems like we've been given a gift for re-entry. I would be loading up shorts with invalidation on a daily close above $7.21. Or alternatively, you could start DCAing. I would get more aggressive if we close below $6.40. That would be a pretty bearish impetus for me, and I would start stacking shorts to the downside on Ethereum Classic, which of course we can do with Binance Margin now. Now let's look at something like let's look at it with some classic analysis and see if we have anything that conflicts here.
I believe Ethereum Classic is also shortable on Kraken.
There we go. Yeah, all right. So I would overall feel the same thing. If we look here with what we would see with classical TA, we're in the middle of the Bollinger Bands, so that's a neutral reading. We have room to expand to the upside, room to expand to the downside. If we look at our moving averages, we are finding resistance at the 20 SMA, and we're in that nice little shelf. So very similar, that nice little shelf between the entry qualifier and the baseline with my system, and right between the 10 period exponential moving average and the 20 period simple moving average here on the daily chart. So again, this kind of creates a nice contraction opportunity to look to speculate on trades. RSI is trending downwards. Where is actually RSI right now? It is almost in the bearish control zone. Stochastics are in the bearish control zone. We see money flow on its way down over the past few days. Yeah, this would be bearish to me. If we were able to close above $6.70, this would start to look kind of better on this chart, but I would still default to what I see over here with my system, because this is just much more cleaner. This is much cleaner, right? and 690 is where we're at with the baseline here, as opposed to that 10 EMA.
Looking at that, if you go back to the Bollinger, I'm sorry, I'm also looking at the screen, so you're probably like a few minutes ago.
That's cool.
But if you look at that Bollinger, it looks like we're getting a bounce off the middle Bollinger band to the downside.
I have that, unless I have that disabled. That's actually the blue line is the 10 period exponential moving average. The red line is the 20 period simple moving average.
Well, the 20 period simple moving average is the central line of a Bollinger band, right?
Oh, au contraire. Ha ha ha.
Got him.
And my Bollinger band is 20. There you go. Look at you.
There you go.
Look at the big brains on Alex.
Hey, you got to know how your indicators work, folks. You got to know how your indicators work.
All right. Trade safely, Wayne. Thank you so much for the question, my brother. All right. Payam Darian says, please ask Justin what silver ETFs for long-term investments he likes and hodls. I would be glad. You know what? I just bought. So you can ask. Alex and Jason were there. When I bought silver, I actually did use Robinhood to buy silver this morning. Okay. It happened. I bought SLV, which is the iShares Trust Silver ETF. Let's see here. So SLV is the one that I've been putting away for a while. What's the alternative to SGOL? I know I have some of the Aberdeen as well. I can't remember the ticker right off the top of my head. I should know this. I apologize. SIVR is the other one that I've been putting away for a while as well. The Aberdeen, they also have an alternative for gold, which is SGOL. I really like SGOL. That's one of the ETFs for gold that I've been stocking for a while. I've talked about SGOL on the channel before. But SLV and SIVR are two really, really good ones. I don't think you can necessarily go wrong for speculative purposes with which one you choose. Just do some good ETF research out there. Look for asset. If you invest in the ones with the largest assets under management and buy the big companies, right? ProShares, iShares, you're gonna do okay. For speculative paper exposure to silver and gold, I wouldn't overthink it too much. Just, there's nothing wrong with GLD, SLV, SIVR, SGOL. Those are the ones that I like quite a bit. Liberty in Trust. I love you, my brother, but I would not recommend Prime XBT to get into silver derivatives and trading with Bitcoin. I do not like Prime XBT. I think they are an accident waiting to happen. I think they are a one broker waiting to happen. And if their aggressive viral marketing is anything to say, I mean, I think we get like 2 emails a week from Prime XBT begging us to be affiliates, and not interested. So sorry, maybe that's neither here nor there, but. What's our next question here? Boris Bitcoin says, am I going to be flipping long on equity markets today? I know you mentioned the economic outlook looks bleak, but stonks don't seem to care, especially with the power of the money printer. Yeah, I mean, overall, I'm going to be defaulting to what the charts say, right? So I put on a position in to short the Dow. That's not working out too well. That position will probably be dropped today. My longs that I picked up moved right before market close on Friday are doing well. PDBC and the USO, I went long on USO again. Those are performing well. I think oil is undervalued. I think it's going to continue to go up for a little bit. I wish I would have gotten that UGAZ trade. I was thinking about that. I didn't pull the trigger on it. The SP 500 is doing pretty well. I think that Bitcoin's going to be pretty interesting to watch here. As I've said, I think Bitcoin can be a leading indicator for the markets. I overall am kind of bearish on Bitcoin. I think that we're likely to reject here. Be more than happy if we put in a big old greenie to the upside and break out, and I get incentivized to go to start market longing again, which I will start to begin stacking those positions today if we start sweeping these lows. And And that means I kind of have to have a little bit of a bleak outlook on the SPY. But at the end of the day, the nice thing about trading a system is that if I see a valid trade setup, I will just simply take it. We'll look at the SPY here in just a little bit. Sakin Umarani asks, what are my views on the MFI indicator? I really like the money flow indicator. I think it works really good as a divergence detector. I think it works really good as a zero cross indicator. It's a good volume volatility filter, which is a necessary component in our trading setups. But I like the, I think that there's some really good modern implementations of the money flow index. I think that if you use the MFI on its own, it can be kind of choppy. I would be smoothing that data out.
Plenty of great smoothers nowadays.
Payam Darian says, can you briefly explain the fear and greed index? And furthermore, how can you read Bitmex Preimium Funding? So with regards to the fear and greed index, I mean, that's relatively simple. It is a social sentiment indicator. There's a couple different implementations of them. The actual way they're tracked is a little proprietary. Like, for example, the one on ScalpX. The one on ScalpX, for example, like monitors some social media and things like that, but there's still some proprietary elements in there. I mean, overall, it's pretty simple, right? Like, if you want to buy low and sell high, you wait until the fear and greed index registers extreme fear or fear. Those are generally good places to buy, and extreme greed is generally good places to sell, right? All different types of implementations like this, but it's just supposed to be an overall tracker for, the cycle of the market. All right. Insofar as Bitmex Preimium Funding, how can it be read? That's also relatively easy. The common bias is when you see a high premium, and you can go through here and like mark levels and backtest this, what you think is important. Same with Bitmex Funding. I've talked about those levels on Bitmex Funding before. But if we just put a cross section through what I would consider extreme periods of backwardation, that's when the premium index is quite low, and we find periods of high price appreciation and mark those highs. When we see a stark premium on price, that indicates that there's a lot of aggressive market buying going on, and that usually occurs in two places: at a breakout or at a top. Okay. Identifying whether it is a breakout or a top is going to rely on the other skills that you're going to learn as a technical analyst. Same with extreme backwardation on price. That's either going to happen at a breakdown or at a bottom. You can generally determine these based on where we are in a range. But for most purposes, when you see a high, at least for short-term trading, let's just look at the last few days or the last few couple weeks since the 9th of March. Here's that green line. Every time we trade a backwardation level below that green line, what happens? The market moves up. Here it is again. So here, the first example of that is here. We have 7 example here on these lows, right? And market moves up. That's a very profitable trade. Here we go. The market trades a premium higher than that green line that I fairly arbitrarily marked. That marks the market high. We do go for a second push and then a big drop down. So if you held that short right around this area, you could have pulled a nice 1 to 2, maybe 5% trade out of this range. Here we go again. Market briefly trades above right here, and you get a pretty quick sell-off. Second leg right here. Here's another example right here where we reach a premium. And that, interestingly enough, a premium on a low pushed price up quite high. And here we have it again. What did this mark? About a 1% sell-off. Here we see it again. What did this mark? About a 3% sell-off. Okay. So relatively easy to read. It is to be combined. It's a reversal strategy. It's not really a reversal strategy. It is. You're trading reversals, but you're trading against sentiment, right? You're trading against retail sentiment. You're trying to trade like an institution. And I think this can be combined with something like ISASpot. So for example, we can see ISASpot helping to fill in the gaps here, right? So here's ISASpot signaling a sell when we continue to rise. Backwardation on price probably isn't going to go down. If price is pumping and we're in backwardation, price is likely going to continue moving up until those shorters get liquidated. If price is dropping and there's aggressive market buying going on, price is probably going to keep dropping until those longs get liquidated. And the premium funding index, the funding and premium index can help you spot those. Bitmex funding also pretty good for spotting long-term reversals as well. Anytime funding goes below a certain threshold, typically the market pumps and that marks a local bottom. That sounds like we're in a video game here. It's like we're in the last stage of Ninja Gaiden.
Ooh.
Right.
Good game.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's one of the hardest games ever made. You know that, right?
That's a old shout out though.
He's got a breakout game genie. What are you talking about? It's not that hard.
Yeah, Ninja Gaiden wins.
Robin from the Hood says, is there a way to not use the lending function on Binance? Yeah, you just
don't use it.
You just don't use it. I'm sorry to say it like that. I mean, you just don't use it. You put money in your margin account and you just go to the margin exchange and you buy and sell. You don't use the borrow. Don't use the borrow function. However, I would recommend taking advantage of their savings function. If you've got Tether sitting around, man, put that in BUSD and put it in Binance Savings. That's free money. If you're gonna have it on the exchange anyways, you might as well earn interest from it. You're paying like almost 7% interest. That's free money. Do I have any thoughts? Blue Box Territory asks, do I have any thoughts on the slope of parallax on Bitcoin daily between spot Bitcoin, CMEs, and GBTC? Retail exchange has increased money flow, with the other two are negative.
The parallax is like the lower axe of Bitcoin.
It's like the lower axe of Bitcoin.
Speaks for the coins.
Unless someone cares a whole awful lot, it's not going to get better. It's not.
All right, parallax sloping down on GBTC. I don't know why I typed in CME. Parallax neutral. I would actually, you know what? I don't think it's sloping down. I think it's neutral on GBTC and Bitcoin futures. Let's go back and look at that GBTC again. What we got there? We just got a sub. Somebody over 9,000 me.
Over 9,000. What is it, Napa?
Meanwhile, we're seeing spot. What is going on here? I think the only difference is weekend data. That's the only difference, I think. I don't see any firm correlation between these two things. I track spot price to determine my trading decisions. All right, let's take a look at SPY by request. All right, big gap up on the SPY, closing above the baseline, breaking Bitcoin initiator to the upside, parallax flipping bullish, rising explosion low from WADA, even a Minx crossover signal. So a lot of positive things going on right now. If the SPY can hold now above 292.47 and 291, then we're looking at a breakout on the SPY, which would actually tend to point to a breakout in Bitcoin as well. Should be good for Bitcoin. So we'll watch. If we just look at the Bitcoin chart, I have to have a bearish perspective until we actually do close. And today's daily close, the next few daily closes will be fairly indicative of which direction to go in BTC. That's why, as I said, I'm still playing the range. But the SPY is overall looking pretty aggressive to the upside here. That's a nice gap. It's a nice gap to the upside. SPY doesn't really show these gap filling behaviors like other markets, like Bitcoin does. So gap traders, don't get out of your seats yet. Just sit back down, calm down. But yeah, this is looking like a valid long signal. So as I said, probably be dropping the SDOW, at least setting a limit for break even. and we'll see if we can get some upside exposure to the SPY here. What do you guys think of this auto tune?
I actually can't hear it.
Can't hear the music on the stream.
can't hear
Oh,
it.
you muted the.
No,
Yeah, you muted the stream.
Oh yeah.
You can't.
It's too weird on the delay.
You can if I do this. Hold on. I just got to route.
Route me, bro.
I got to route music into the chat. Mike, you hear it now? You hear it now?
No, it came through briefly, but not so much. But I wouldn't say it's super important, as long as the audience can hear it.
Yeah, it's certainly not super important.
All right, special.
Oh, Philly from Manchester, my brother. Thank you so much for the big tip. 48.99 quid coming in hot. How you doing over there in Manchester, my friend?
Holding the graphene scene down.
Holding the graphene scene down, man. Looking forward to seeing you in San Francisco this October. Hopefully we get to go. I don't know if
Are we gonna even be able to go? Teleconference.
You know, if they do a virtual thing, it will probably be attended by no one.
says
I'll be there.
Mancunian crypto guy at the Exchange 2020 Manchester. There you go. Ultra Instinct on these shirts in a second. You mean, what is that? Is that like Killer Instinct?
No, it would make Beerus blush, is what he's saying.
Gotcha.
Dragon Ball reference.
Oh, gotcha.
It's a super reference.
Yeah, it's a super reference.
Yeah, I'm not down with the super. Sorry.
Yeah, you can leave.
I've what, dude? Like, I don't know. There's not enough time in the day.
Yeah, they've been going for 30 years.
I'll watch the. I got my good daily dose of DBZN growing up.
Well, I mean, we get it all the time with Bitcoin ranging around 9,000, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, Tournament of Power is like 60 episodes, so yeah, there's a lot of catching up to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All in Namek was about my lifetime, so. But in terms of price here, I do find it interesting that we closed where we did, especially on the weekly, which is going to give a lot of credence to why a lot of people are thinking that we're going to press up from here. But I really do think that we're going to have to test lower. I think this is just going to get everyone hyped up, and then we're going to sell into it again.
So you're gonna have to watch the stream for this one, but you're thinking like
tonight at 11.
Okay. I get this better position. Hold on, let's try this again.
Tonight at 11.
That was like my favorite clip of Al.
Ooh, yeah, seriously. Futurama, another good one. Ooh. It's got everyone feeling like they're on the Titanic and they can buy.
Let me see about the Pie Guy's question.
What is...
All right, let's see here.
Because no hack.
Well,
Go ahead.
the Pie Guy had asked, if you've used the Binance lending function, I have. And right on their website, right on Binance's website, we'll just go here, right? Let me pull this open on the screen. Ultimate guide to earning crypto with Binance Lending. So you've got you got fixed deposits and flexible deposits. Fixed deposits mean that you subscribe or lock your funds for a predetermined amount of time and interest. In contrast, flexible deposits allow you to withdraw at any time, and the interest rate changes over time. So if you want to lock up your funds and not be able to access them until the lending contract is over, which is I max that out because I want the most interest rate possible, then you can't pull your money out, but you get more interest. If you use the flexible, your interest rate is going to be low and progressively will change over time.
Could that be comparable to like a locked CD from a bank?
Yeah. Yep. Or any locked investment device. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have to go get my passport. I have to go get it renewed anyways. It's going to expire here.
I had to do that just a minute ago. They want $160 just to renew it.
Well, they got these new this new standard now where they put this little, it's more government tracking. They put this little like silver star or whatever, right, in the top right hand corner.
They do that on your IDs, your driver's license too now, I think.
Not mine.
Well, mine doesn't have it either. I haven't gotten a new one, but I remember reading something about that.
Justin Jotaro's Blizzard Bitcoin Adventures.
Just wait till the episode where he hits the mines.
I thought there were RFID chips and passports.
I don't know. I know if you hit it with a black light, it'll blow up.
Since August 2007, all U.S. passports have come embedded with an RFID chip.
You have to cut mine apart to find it.
The things you may not know about the microchip in your passport.
It's watching you.
This 2025, all human beings come equipped with
RFID chips.
No, it's gonna be Neuralink.
Well, this is rah go RFID chips. All right, so you said Uniswap V2 was launched. They're gonna force me to take a vaccine before I get into a plane. I'll buy my own plane, Anton Libre.
There you go. You tell me you're gonna do all that for a G5?
Only thing going inside this body is caffeine.
I see you're unvaccinated. Okay, your seating is in the wheel well.
We got a box outside for you to get in.
You see these straps on the side of the wings right here?
Those are for people with vaccinations. What do you think the other ones are? They just FedEx them.
Dear student, do I see any undervalued newer projects or coins that are valid for a moonshot given proper risk management? Is there anything I can invest my money in that's going to 100x? Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's a lot of good opportunities out there. Coins that I have my eye on. I've talked about coins that I have. I generally dislike doing that on the big public stream because I don't want to influence somebody's poor decision, especially because the people that are in the group I know are practicing good risk management. So I post recommendations in my market analysis, the coins that I'm watching. For example, I allocated funds to 2 new coins last week. Well, I've actually been stacking the one for a while, but I did make my first purchase of the one last week, and continue to do so. They're part of Money Monday, right? So you just, if there are altcoins or other investments that you're interested in, you do the same thing. You allocate funds to them over time, and you trade them completely independently. So when Money Monday rolls around, it's time to buy something. I don't care what the price is. When it's time to trade, I don't look at my investment portfolio. All right, guys. Is it almost 2 o'clock? Oh, my dear Lord.
It went fast.
It went fast. It's time to go.
Time flies.
Time flies. All right. Yeah. Did you guys have any thoughts about price before we go? Besides what we've already, talked about, shared, discussed, shared with the members?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's just a matter of being patient here and letting the market do what it's going to do. But I am a proponent that we're going to see further downside here. Could range at these levels for a while to get people all psyched up, but we will see.
Can you do the Binance savings account if you're in the United States? As long as they don't know you're in the United States.
They're already on to me. Which is weird enough that they allow me to keep my old Binance account because I had one before it switched to the whole US and stuff like that. But it lets me trade all the coins, but if I go to open the margin account, it says, nope, not available for your location. I'm like, well, shouldn't this whole thing not be available for my location? So that confused me a little bit.
I feel like Binance savings is the worst of both worlds. It's like you have exchange hack risk, and then you also have inflationary,
Yeah. You get the counterparty and the inflationary. But I mean, hey, 7% interest, that's a pretty good rate. That's a pretty good rate to fight against inflation.
Is that a month?
It just depends. They got different they have different time locks. Blue Box says, do I do extensive research into coins or do I focus more on the TA? You're talking about when I make long-term investments or when I allocate to my investment portfolio. So I've talked about this a lot. I've got several hours of content on this in the course. I invest in what I believe in, right? So if I do, listen, TA is a useful tool when making long-term investments. I think it's better suited for shorter-term trading, which is what I utilize to earn active income as a trader, which is what I do. That's my form of active income. So most people get a paycheck. I get a paycheck, but I write my own paycheck every single month from my trading proceeds. But my long-term investments pay out over years, maybe sometimes even half decades or decades. And I'm building a pool of wealth to pass on to my children. And I'm doing that with everything that I believe in and moves me as a human being. Because if it moves me as a human being, it can move somebody else, right? Market valuations are a combination of good fundamentals, strong price action, and sentiment. And that sentiment is what I invest in, right? So Bitcoin made sense to me. It made sense to me when I first came across it in 2016, so I invested in Bitcoin. Ethereum made sense to me. I invested in Ethereum. I understand how Bitcoin works. I understand how Ethereum works. I don't understand all the nitty-gritty of how some of the new Ethereum ERC20 smart contracts work, but I understand the concept of ERC20 smart contracts. So the same with other coins, tokens, projects. If I believe in what they're trying to do and I think it would make my life better, then I feel comfortable investing into them. Because then when price is down, I know that the market has just not yet come around to how valuable this is yet. All I have to do is be patient, or I'm wrong, which is fine, because that's the point of being diversified. So when we talk about fundamentals for altcoins, it depends on what you mean. Like, how many transactions per second can this blockchain handle? What blockchain is it on? All that's fine. I've done a lot of due diligence like that and written long reports, and that's fine. You should do that. But at the end of the day, what are they trying to do? What is their plan to accomplish what they want to do? And will that make my life better? And if those things, if you understand that and you believe the answer is yes, then it's a logical assumption to think that other people will believe the same thing, give it enough time, and that's probably a decent investment, or at least something that you could begin dipping your beak into. Thank you so much, Philly. That's highly heartwarming, my brother. I do what I love, man. Takes a lot of it took some time, but that goal is out there, man. That path is out there for anybody who just is willing to put in the work.
I can contest to that. It is doable.
It is doable. All right, but with that being said, let's head for the door, guys. Thank you, Mr. Jack, Mr. Jason, Mr. Alex, for joining me.
With 200 people watching, we got to be able to get 19 likes within a couple minutes, right? Just to get this over 100.
Where are we at? Where are we at, guys?
81. We're at 81 right now.
81.
81 likes.
198 people. Come on.
Did we get over 8,000? Did we get over 8,000 subs yet? Hold on, let me check.
Not yet. I believe we're still 20 away.
4 away. We are 4 subs away from 8,000.
4 subs. Come on, guys.
All right, guys. Listen, I'll let you weigh with your own decisions. But hold on just a second. I'm gonna. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you. I'll see you guys for the next stream. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Breaking Bitcoin Market Analysis. I'm your host, Justin Wise, the lead analyst and senior mentor at KrakenCryptocurrency.com. I want to thank members of my team for coming on for the final conclusion there. Yes, we are 4 subs away from 8,000 here on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon. That is the way that you will be notified when we go live. Also helps support the channel and let us know that you enjoyed this amazing content that we put out each and every day. And yes, 19 likes to get to 100. I know that we can do it. Dig down deep and find the support that you want to give the show. Help us continue making this amazing content every single day. Smash the like button on your way out, guys. If you're watching us on DLive or Twitch, consider giving us a follow or a subscription. Also, if you guys are tired of trading on the sidelines, trading with your gut, getting disappointed by crypto Twitter's calls, join our community. Check out premium.krakencryptocurrency.com. Start building your data-driven objective trading strategy. Learn how to put all the components together. Take advantage of our mentoring, our indicator suite, and our trading signals to help propel you along the route. More information in the description below, or again, visit premium.krakencryptocurrency.com. We will be back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, as we always are, broadcasting. We're not underground anymore. We are above ground. We had to come up to get some fresh air. The weather is getting nicer over here in the outskirts, in the rural areas. From the above ground, but completely sanitized, Breaking Bitcoin bunker. With that being said, guys, thank you so much. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, sarcastic remarks, and or death threats, please leave them in the comment section down below. We'll try our best to get back to you very shortly. It is Money Monday, guys. Make sure to make an investment today. It is the day to buy something as long as it is valuable. Buy some Bitcoin, Ethereum, gold, silver, an undervalued stock. Get out there, get active, start stacking that money, and let's do this, guys. Do something awesome today and trade safely. I'll see you tomorrow.